Welcome, everybody, to the show. This is Counterclipping Show number 229 for June 30th, 2025, and I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Our topic is Wargaming in Vietnam. We'll tackle that from a couple of different angles based on the games that we're going to look at. And we are drinking Glenlivet Caribbean Reserve, which is still good. So we are going to not finish it this evening. Let's put it that way. So for anyone who was wondering about the weird graphics glitching problem that we had last week, I think we're set up to do that this week because I think it's just my shitty internet. So I have downscaled the resolution of this show to 720, so that should help to alleviate that problem. And even if it doesn't, I'm moving to a new internet provider pretty soon. So there's that. So before we get started, I want to remind everybody to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already. There's a whole bunch of ways to support the channel in the video description. Check that out. I've also put a couple of the news links from tonight's show in the video description because it's just easier than having to try and cut and paste it into the chat overnight. And there's some interesting news items here this evening. So big shout out to the patrons of Ardwulf, Lair, and our new warrior level patron, Jeffrey. Thank you, Jeffrey, for helping to support the show and help keep this jalopy running for as long as we can, as well as to our good friends at Noble Knight Games, from whom we will hear later. They are the official sponsor of the Counterclipping Show, and they are delightful folks as well. So, there we go. I'm trying to keep these things sorted out. So, let's get through the roll call first before we get any further. Let's say hello to Alistair, Logie, B. Goebel, Bob Meyer, Charles Latora, Chet Bell, Dale Brady, Daniel Silverthorne, Danny Gable, Danny Seckery, David Imperato, TJ Flippy, E.L. Edmeister, Eric Schaefer, Grunyard, Rich, HUN644 New, James Whitmer, Jeff Anderson, Joe Hammond, John Clark, John Griffiths, Jonathan Dyer, Joseph Caparula, Kyle Harris, Lee Grant, Meandering Mike is here, Michael Karlowski, Midi Doctors, Neil Badkey, Penz, Division Lair, Paul Dangle, Paul Sin, Perfidious Albion, Perry Sparopoulos, Pico Armor, welcome back, good to see you. Scott Bell, Sean Milroy, Stacky Limit, Stigler, Stugato is here. Joe, thanks for stopping by. Todd Cox, Vicky, thanks for coming by again. And Vince Ree, and I apologize to anyone that I have missed, like Aaron Dennis, for example, who wasn't in the list. So, no, I'm on Spectrum. I do not believe satellite internet is mature technology, regardless of the marketing behind that. So even if I was tempted, I'm not tempted, if you know what I'm saying. I'm going to go with local fiber is what's going to happen. So, all right. So, and we're clipping Advanced Squad Leader once again. And as we will, if I don't have something else specific to clip, like for actual play, it will be Advanced Squad Leader. So it's funny you should mention this, Sean. First of all, thanks very much for sending me that. Now, the one article from the Cleveland Plain Dealer about, his name is Dan, not that Dan, different Dan. Dan was a patron of the game store that we ran back at right around the time that article came out, and he took a lot of shit about that article. Let me tell you. So there's that. So that was a kick just to see that article again. So this is plausible. I haven't even finished Dinant yet out of Croix de Guerre, so that's going to take a while. All right, for anyone who would like a link to the Ardwulf Lair Discord community, this I will drop in the chat because that will do less well as a link in the video description because people come across this 6 months from now and obviously it won't be any good. So there's that. You know, I've had worse internet than Spectrum, but I've also had better. So, and it is an awesome Discord. So thank you, Danny. Much appreciated. You are one of the people helping to make it such an awesome Discord. So hop into the Ardwulf Lair Discord community. It has been great. There will also be pretty soon an official launch for the RPG Digest YouTube channel. That's going to happen in the next month or so. Still gearing up. Kind of needed a couple days, well, like a week and a half off after the, let's say, high-intensity experience that was Origins. And we're going to talk about some of the Origins numbers here very briefly tonight, too, because Gamma has announced them. So, let's see what we got here. Mike Berticelli, thanks for stopping by. If anybody wants a list of the games that got sold on the shit show last night, or attempted to be sold, there is one on the Ardwulf Lair Discord community. Please, it's in the sales and trades channel. If anybody wants to quibble about the typos, I was typing it live as Dan was talking, and you can imagine how well that went. So they hadn't announced these numbers by last Monday, however. So let us talk about, I'll throw an RPG Digest link in the chat toward the end of the show. Want to talk first about, let me get all my screen share stuff set up here. So eminent designer and Napoleonic maestro Kevin Zucker has just kind of dropped or released, or something happened here where he has released, and you can just download these, all the issues of his Wargame Design magazine, which is pretty good. Highly recommended. If you're specifically into Napoleonics, you probably should be reading this anyway. But even if you're not, you might glean some very interesting things. And if you are in particular a fan of the Library of Napoleonic Battles, then you definitely want to download this thing, because it's got like a kind of a summary of all the battles that are simulated by the series so far. It's pretty cool. And there's like 5 pages of this. You will have to like drill in and then download the links, but it's totally worth your time. So big thanks to Kevin Zucker, because this is a valuable community resource that he has kindly made available to everybody. So good job, Kevin, in addition to all the other good jobs you do. So that's worth a look. And then here's another thing I'm going to drop in the chat. I'm going to drop the Spotify link, but you can find this on Apple Podcasts as well. There is a new Wargaming podcast called Cardboard Campaigns. They have 1 episode out. It is excellent so far. I'm about half an hour into it. I will listen to the remainder during my commute tomorrow. So it's worth checking out. And like I said, it's about an hour and 4 minutes or something like that. So it's not absurdly long. Before we get into the Origins numbers, I will tell you that sometime in the next 48 hours, I have requested tomorrow evening, we will release the live presentation of the Charles S. Roberts Awards presentation. That will be over on Dan's channel, No Enemies Here. So check that out. I think the presentation went pretty well. It could have gone better. I see many opportunities for improvement for next year. However that drops out. But I will say that now that we've done it, the idea of doing it at Origins is attractive for a variety of reasons, without me offering a commitment. We got to get the board together, and everybody needs to talk about future directions and all that stuff. And I'll be setting that up again soon. I won't talk about that for the remainder of the show unless somebody has like a very specific question. So, Origins 2025. They have announced the attendance, which was up 8% from last year. They were over 19,000. I think they were shooting for 18,000 after 17-something last year. So good job for that. And I had a fabulous time at Origins. They had 7,810 scheduled events, which is insane. No wonder Tabletop Events has problems dealing with this. And that was up 27% from last year. And they also had more exhibitors. They had 410 total exhibitors. And you could kind of tell that they were using more of the same. It's the same space that they've used for years. But you could tell that they were using more of it. Now, they've moved some things into the dealers area too, but they still had 27 or 26% more vendors this year than last year, including a whole bunch of RPG publishers. For Wargame providers selling Wargames at Origins, it was basically the same people that we always see. Enterprise Games, Decision, Academy Games, Dietz was there. They've been there for the last couple of years. And this is in the dealer's room, right? There were people from a lot of other game companies, including GMT and Catastrophe Games and Fort Circle and all kinds of stuff. I will mention, since Mike mentions it, I do have a list of upcoming conventions here. July 11th through the 20th is the Consim Expo in Tempe, Arizona. I would love to go to that someday, but it ain't happening this year. From August 26th to September 4th, we have WBC in Seven Springs, Pennsylvania. That's another week-long event, and it's a fun event. I doubt I'll make it this year. If I do, it will be another day trip. And then August 29th to September 4th is Gen Con. I will not be going, but if anybody is there and is like going to take a bunch of pictures or look for Wargames or something like that, let me know. My email is in the ticker at the bottom. You have missed literally nothing, Brand. So, yeah, I mean, Gamma's got to be happy. I think. I mean, it's unclear to me why Gamma maintains an interest in owning and operating Origins in the first place. But if they do, I like Origins a lot. I've been going to it for ages, and I would like to see it continue in its current location, more or less. And so I wish it every success, even though I think Gamma is clueless in many regards. And of course, Brand has a complete Wargaming events calendar over at the Armchair Dragoon site, so go ahead and check this out. I didn't mention any of these because I have no chance of going to any of this, basically ever. Gen Con, at some point I would like to go back, but it ain't happening this year, I can tell you that. It's going to have to be planned thoroughly, or be a completely half-assed Sunday day trip type escapade, which is also possible. So, all right, so that's the next wave of stuff that Wargamey type stuff at least happens at. All right. Have I covered everything? I think I have. Indeed, I have. Okay, so let's get talking. We might do a little bit of a short show tonight. It depends how long it takes me to get through the games that I've got to talk about. So let's get started with the best of the Vietnam War in wargaming. We will notice immediately that there are a few air games in here, because there really isn't that much. BGG only lists like 55 games that are on the Vietnam War in their like Vietnam category, although they conspicuously did leave something important out, which just highlights why BGG as a user maintained database of games, well, definitely immensely useful. It is not perfect. So, Rogero Con, Brant, get that on the calendar. There you go. Historicon, I actually got, I haven't even looked at it since I brought it home. I got the whole HMGS schedule that I brought home for Origins, and I'll look at going to one of those events. A couple of them are in Ohio anyway, so, not this year, but we'll see. I would like to at least, show up and look around, if nothing else. So, So this is not on my list, Brant. Dark City Games, the Vietnam War. Although Dark City Games does some interesting stuff. No doubt about that. Larry McIntyre, thanks for stopping by. All right, so we are not just lucky in the U.S. I think we are specifically lucky in the Midwest. We've got, this is kind of the heartland of where a lot of gaming got started. East Coast, there's like hot spots of gaming everywhere in across the U.S. Let me put it that way. The hotspots I can think of are obviously like the Baltimore, D.C. area where Avalon Hill started and where there's a lot of people working for the Pentagon, up by New York where SPI was running for many, many years, and a bunch of those folks still live there. And then we had the Midwest, mostly centered around Wisconsin, but also Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio, and Minnesota for that matter. And then over on the East Coast, I'm not sure really whether this was an LA or a Bay Area thing, where Chaosium was at first. I want to say they were Bay Area because I think their office was in Oakland when they started in something like 1975. So that was a little bit of a hotbed of gaming back in the 70s as well. So there's plenty of gaming. For war games, not in the U.S., depends on exactly where you are. We will try, however, to do more of what we did last week, where we talk about VUCA simulations, and we'll pick somebody else next time, obviously, and what they have that's attractive. I could think offhand I'd like to do Europa Simulazione because I have several of their games as well. And GDW was in Normal, Illinois. I don't know where that is in Illinois, to be completely honest, but I believe it to be sort of close to Chicago. I think it's more close to Bloomington, as I recall. So I think it's not that close to Chicago, now that I think about it. Because they all got to, they started, I think, at University of Indiana, or Illinois, wherever it is. So, all right. Yeah, Australia, you guys are really getting the short straw down in Australia between shipping costs and all that stuff. Yeah, that's fantastic. I had heard about this, of course, that the Wargaming wing of Pacificon has been named in honor of Mark Ruggiero, which I think is fantastic. And Mark was there the last time, which is great. And when Mark passed, we were all at HSD Hist, so it was the news just went, it just flattened the mood in the whole place like within 10 minutes. So, all right, Normal is in Central Illinois, Twin City to Bloomington. I know where Chicago is. Other than Chicago, and possibly driving through it once or twice, I'm not sure I've ever been to Illinois, anywhere in Illinois other than Chicago. And the gamers in Homer, that's true too. Again, Midwest, right? So good catch, Joseph Caparula. All right, so wow, usual golf partner for Joe Perez was at Quezon, and interestingly, we got Quezon as one of the things in the number one piece here. So this is Vietnam Battles, Hue and Quezon from Strategy and Tactic issue 196. I can't read that and I can't tell, but the game is a 1999 release. It's a 2-pack, Joe Miranda design. It does not have a good rating, but there's only 29 ratings, so you can figure out for yourself what that means. I figure for basically 1999, I think these counters do not look that bad, nor does the map particularly. I don't know what the Ace of Spades is on here for, but presumably it's doing something. Yeah, that's not a bad looking map, to be honest. Now, there are a couple of these Vietnam Battles issues from either S&T or Modern War Magazine that we will cover here. I don't have anything to say about this. I think this did pass through my hands very briefly at one point. To be honest, I think that the numerical quantitative rating provided by BGG is not worth anything like a serious conversation. It is a cute number, and it is often derived from a very small number of people voting to what the rating is. So it's very susceptible, not just to manipulation, which is also true, but it's susceptible to just like there's not very many people voting, or to polarizing games, right? Games that people tend to either love or totally hate. Hexy, thanks for stopping by. Ace of Spades, this is probably true. I mean, there are all kinds of military connotations for playing cards, so I wasn't even going to try and speculate about that. So, all right. So moving on from Hue and Quezon, these are, of course, two battles that I know not much more than nothing about, but hey, there, you got to start somewhere. I've read exactly one book on Vietnam, which was, God damn it, what's the Max Hastings book on Vietnam, which I am aware has issues, but for me, it was the right book at the right time. All right, this is from Yaquinto, one of their album games, The Fall of South Vietnam. A game of combat in South Vietnam, 73 to 75 by Neil Zimmerer. We'll see a Roger McGowan cover, of course. And I'll tell you what, that's a pretty good cover for, the fact that it's in a record album packaging. Other than that, it's an area movement game. I can't really tell you a whole lot about it. It looks very simple. It's got a higher rating than Quezon. Quezon, Purple, I have not played Purple Haze. We'll get to Purple Haze here. But I hear it's really good. It's been extremely well received, and congrats to Purple Haze for now being a Charles S. Roberts Award winner. So yeah, I don't know a whole lot about this. Yaquinto had generally really nice counters. These have center nibs, which triggers my OCD very badly. But other than that, looks like I think this is a picture of the actual counter sheet. There's not a lot of detail on this on Board Game Geek, as you can imagine, but it does have more ratings than the S&T game we just mentioned. So I do think that the album game format was an interesting format, especially if you enjoy looking for pieces. But not a great format for war games. Yaquinto did stuff in like boxes too. It's just that I think nobody else had ever tried anything, and nobody since has tried anything other than some potential gimmick item that maybe comes in a record sleeve. So yeah, I don't have anything much more to say about this. This is an interesting one. This is Tet Offensive by Frank Chadwick at Game Designers Workshop, 1991. And this came in a big board game size, like a more conventional board game size box rather than the bookcase size box that we typically expect from war game companies, including GDW, but it also was not in the same kind of box as the flat boxes they used for the Europa games and some other things too. So, the fantasticest fact. Welcome to the show live. How about that? He's watching the Ken Burns on Vietnam. I need to watch that. And have a campaign series remastered for Matrix Games. I need to look at some more of those, to be completely honest about it. I've heard good things about... I kind of want to watch the baseball thing from Kevin Zucker. So, not Kevin Zucker. Ken Burns. As far as if Ken Burns does a thing on the Napoleonic Wars, then Kevin Zucker is a person he should definitely be talking to. So, of course, Vietnam is a topic that maybe still hasn't quite settled in the same into being, comfortably distant history like World War II kind of has now in the last, say, 20 years, as the vast majority of the veterans of those conflicts and the people who, had lives with those veterans are not with us anymore. That is much less true of the Vietnam War, so some people are still touchy about it, and that's, understandable, completely understandable. So, all right, now I don't know what this goes for. As we can see, it is a point-to-point game, and so help me, this looks a lot like a House Divided, and in fact may be based on the House Divided system. I can think of stupider ideas, somewhat abstract terms. BGG doesn't list it that way, but not sure what happened to BGG's counters. Interesting counter mix in this one. This is another one that I'm going to pull this up. So this was a style of cover art that GDW had for a number of their games in this general time frame, and I got to tell you, I really don't like this cover style. I think it just looks weird and super dated nowadays, but that shouldn't count against it particularly. 6.1 from BGG with 68 ratings. That's not horrific, but it's not amazing either. But it is a Frank Chadwick design, and frankly, Frank's got a lot of really great designs to his credit, and generally speaking, there's something worthwhile in any Frank Chadwick design. The Jazz series. I might have to look at. That actually. I could skip this. Safely skip this one. No problem. It's not that I despise all country music. I just have some country music I like. I will listen to that. I am happy with that. We're good. So it kind of does. It reminds me, at least, of those little ads in the comic books. Get 10,000 U.S. Marines or whatever it was, that kind of thing. And it is a difficult war to model, and that's why we will see relatively few operational games. Most of the games we will hit here tonight will be either tactical games or air games. There are some interesting air campaigns in this conflict. So, yeah, there you go. This is exactly what I was saying. So, but it is a difficult war to model, and that's one reason why we have seen relatively few designers willing to tackle the entire conflict, or at least, the big conflict at the strategic level, covering a large proportion of it. It is a big and complicated conflict that really starts in the 50s, and I suppose you could make a case before that. Before the Americans even get involved, the French are down there tied up in it, and they did not much better than we did. So probably worse than we did, to be completely honest. I always kind of want, there's probably a YouTube unboxing of these things. But I never had any of these. I would be curious, I must admit. So moving on from Tet Offensive, we have another SPI classic, Grunt, Tactical Combat in Vietnam. Designers listed by BGG. I don't like to take BGG's word for it, but I'm also not looking it up. John Kramer and John Young. And as you can, this is a 71. Yeah, this is 71. So this is one of a couple that we'll cover here tonight. Vietnam games that were released when the Vietnam War was still happening. No, it is not on this list. Ooh, this is a good call. No, I don't have this on my list either. This is a good call though, and frankly, for that matter, the Dien Bien Phu game from Kim Kanger and Legion Wargames, I think, is supposed to also be really good, and I don't have that on this list either, and I should. So, all right, we should again. So, But Citadel is about Dien Bien Phu, and it would have been a good target for this as well. But it's not listed as a Vietnam game on BGG because it's Dien Bien Phu, so there's no Americans in it. It doesn't count. So, all right. I don't know if he was the guy or not, but one of the American admirals who was like on hand or had some level of responsibility over the Gulf of Tonkin incident was, as I recall, I forget his actual name, but he was Jim Morrison's dad, which is an interesting piece of music and wargaming trivia. So as we can see, as we might expect from 1971 SPI, this is a monochrome map, but they printed it on some kind of cream paper, I believe. The counters are... for 1971, I guess I can't complain too much, but I can complain. And there's kind of an interesting sort of black and gold and then black on gold type of motif here. I kind of do like the color palette used for the counters. I want to say that Mark Herman has expressed some admiration for this game in the past, and that counts for something, right? He would be. So, well, we'll see what we can do. You're the Rat's coming any second now. Tonkin, I've forgotten about, actually. So, moving on from Grunt. Now, this is... I don't know where this text comes from. Appears to be the first commercial squad-level war game. And just based on the year, that's possibly correct. And this is S&T number 26. And if we look at third-party prices on here, $55 from Noble Knight. I feel like that's high, but if it's unpunched and the magazine's in good shape too, maybe it's okay. But I'm a cheapskate when it comes to buying old S&Ts because I have some idea of what the subscription numbers were. But this is 1971. They probably weren't up to 30,000 subscriptions at this point yet. All right, this is another one from S&T by Eric Harvey. Green Berets Vietnam from 2015 from Modern War magazine. And this is Central Highlands during the Vietnam War, Modern War number 18. And we can see that the map looks fine, I guess. What I'm not sure about is whether this game depicts specific historical engagements or not. Or whether it is more of a Vietnam tactical sandbox. I will say I do think the cover is this particular photo cover is pretty striking, to be honest. Sea Lords, that's passed through my hands too, and I probably should have kept it. That actually looks like a fairly interesting game. Not Sea Lords of the Mekong Delta is not on this list. But Green Berets Vietnam is. Not a lot of ratings, not a very high rating, but I'm not sure anybody cares. Let's look at the counters real quick. Ugh. Not crazy about these counters. I see significant, they're larger counters, which is good, but I also see significant contrast problems. So there's that. I thought Skyhawk was not Vietnam, but I could be wrong about that. As air games go, I have very little experience in air games. And most of my air game experience has actually come in the form of naval games with carriers in them, to be honest. All right, next up is another Modern War issue, Vietnam Battle, Snoopy's Nose and the Iron Triangle. And this is another Eric Harvey design. I cannot find that it's, if anybody knows, let me know. If anybody knows whether this is in fact the same game system as the other Vietnam Battles games that appeared in various Decision magazines, let me know. This is an early Modern War game. And if we look at this map, I don't hate these counters too much. I feel like they're fine. The map looks okay, to be honest. This is probably not one that goes for a ton of money. Nope, it does not. Sometimes, however, when you see like super low prices, you'll zoom in and let's find out. Sometimes it's the magazine, but no game. Both of these prices are magazine only. So much for that from Noble Knight anyway. But you can, take your luck on trying to get it elsewhere here. So Carl Fung, thanks for stopping by. Lock and Load Vietnam is on this list. We'll see it in a minute here. Skyhawk Rolling Thunder 1966. Okay, I do remember this now. I don't have that on this list either. Damn it. That's unfortunate. Maybe I needed more air games. All right, here is First Team Vietnam by Mike Jocelyn. Now, this is presumably Drang, because that's what we call that, because it's like the first big American engagement, and it looks a little weird. Is this a solitaire game? This is a solitaire game, so it looking a little weird is maybe not that weird. This appeared in the Wargamer magazine published by 3W for a while in parallel with S&T. So Patty Rafesky says, reminds Battle Fury, more condensed, not as repetitive. Craig Alexander's been enjoying Purple Haze. Steve Dixon has a sister game to Skyhawk coming, Thunder Chief. That's cool. Yeah, well, yes, but when we see that in a Wargame title, I'm not sure I can think of any exceptions that it's about something other than Yadrang. So, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly either. I'm probably not. So, but the counters are not horrendous. Let me know, by the way, if the resolution is a little better tonight. And here we are, Skyhawk Rolling Thunder, 1966 by Steve Dixon. Now, this is a solitaire game. I don't know how procedural it is, because I haven't looked at it very closely, but it looks pretty procedural, and Legion has done a number of games in that space, and actually done a pretty nice job with them, too. So, there are at least a couple of different ones. I can tell you that. So there's no map to show you here. Is there counters to show you? Well, here's a picture of some counters. Not sure I have much to say about this one either, because it is an air game and I haven't played it. So Craig says the resolution is great. Let's hope that's correct. Also don't have the old Hui game from, I want to say, Mayfair Games. That's not on here either, and it wasn't listed as a Vietnam game by Board Game Geek either, for whatever reason. All right, moving on from... let's actually reopen that. So let's see here. So there's a sister game coming, Thunder Chief, which will presumably also be, okay, so this is during Rolling Thunder. You're flying flights off an aircraft carrier with the Skyhawk and against the North Vietnamese. Everything is kind of as expected here. There you go. Zilla Blitz has a good playthrough of Skyhawk. I don't think this made it on my list. By the way, I was going to send... I didn't want this to be taken the wrong way, but I was going to send Carl an email expressing my outrage about the fuzzy MMP logo on the inflection point maps. I would not... If I end up sending that note... Carl, I will not be being serious. I don't care at all. I've seen it. It's completely trivial. So, well, it was Mayfair and it was John Hill. That is right. I've never played that. I've never personally handled it. I have personally seen it, but I've personally seen a lot of games because I sat through all those Origins auctions so many years ago. All right, next up is In Country Vietnam. This is 7.158 ratings. That's not that great, but I've heard good things about this game from certain individuals. This is a Joe Miranda design, and as we can see, it is a hex and counter game, which is nice to see. Looks like 2 counter sheets, so it's a bigger than average magazine game, but they occasionally did that. And then we have a bunch of different scenarios ranging from 65 to 72. I don't think it's solitaire, though. It is not solitaire. It's 2 sides. Is it 2 maps, too? Kind of looks like 1 map to me. Nice looking map, in my opinion, though. 2013 game. Larry Hoffman is credited as the artist, but this is another one that I don't necessarily trust BGG to be complete about. I'd kind of like to obtain this one myself. Noble Knight for $295. I will bet you $295. That's just the magazine. $55 on the geek market in like new condition, and investigate at your leisure. There's also Ranger. That's true. Well, this is not. So Vince Reese says that In Country here sold. I think they're working on a new version of this, aren't they? I know they're working on an update of Year of the Rat. I would say that I have no particular obstacle playing solitaire and just playing all the sides. Okay, I don't have an issue with that. Where it starts to become problematic is when you have games with a large quantity of hidden information, and then that hidden information is critically important to how the game plays. And the Nick Carp Vietnam, which is the game that Vince is talking about here, Vietnam 65 to 75 from Victory Games, and then recently released by GMT. That game is extremely dependent on hidden information, and I think you're going to have a very different experience trying to solitaire it. It is as close to unsolitarable as any game I can think of off the top of my head. All right. So, yeah, this is one I wouldn't mind having. Should probably put it on a wish list somewhere. Well, this isn't on the list either, but not because I think Critical Hit has a dodgy reputation for quality, and some dubious judgment in terms of what they think those systems will handle well, but because I didn't think of it, and it's not. I don't know if it's its own thing or not. It's impossible to tell with Critical Hit, so because it's very difficult to just figure out what the hell's what. All right, no trumpets, no drums, the Vietnam War. Now, this has been redone at least a couple of times. Okay, so twice. There is the original 3W version, and then it was redone in 2016 by One Small Step. And this is a Mark McLaughlin game and a Larry Twohy game. And this is I've had some people express a liking for this game as well. It is a hex map game, which, I like hex map games. Yeah, I could see ways to do it, but then you're doing stuff all right, I'm gonna do my declarations and then I'll pick it back up tomorrow and hope I forget what was going on, right? So this is the One Small Step version of the map. This looks pretty nice to me. Another one that's not on this list is Vietnam Rumor of War from Adam Starkweather and Compass, but I will mention it. That's a 3-map game. It's part of the OSS Operational Scales series or Operational Scales system, which is a family of games that I just don't feel like it worked for me when I had the Vietnam game in my possession. But I will tell you that the 3 maps are very nice. Front Towards Enemy we'll get to in a couple of minutes. All right, next up is Winged Horse, Vietnam 1965. Now, this says campaigns in Vietnam, and this is probably also maybe one of a series. This is a Joe Miranda game from 2006. This is interesting. All right, so we've got Victory Games Vietnam. That's up here. We've got S&T 281 In Country, which is, I guess, this one. Yeah, I think it is this one. And then this is going to be Winged Horse, I think. So that's interesting. I don't like this cover quite as much. So this is Winged Horse. Okay, with the dark background. Decent looking map, I can tell you that. Counters are fine. Don't know how well this plays. Rating wise, we are going low to high ratings here. Rating wise, it's okay. 58 people have rated it on BGG. That doesn't really mean very much with that volume of people. Vince Reese says there's some horrifically complicated and unsatisfying solo variants for the Victory Games. I will call it Nick Carp's Vietnam, so I don't have to say Victory Games or GMT's Vietnam 1965 to 70. Blah, 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 blah. So, I can imagine that this would be... It's just not set up for that. This is In Country... Shit. This is in country, yeah. And then here is Year of the Rat. Now, this is John Prados' game. I know they list Jim Dunnigan and Redmond Simonson here. I'm not sure exactly how that shook out because I don't own this and have never owned this, but I think of this as a John Prados design. And this is a 1972 design. Once again, well, American involvement in the war was starting to wind down. The war's still going on. It's still happening. It's still in the newspaper every day and on the news every night. When this is happening. This is also I think it's a 4-color process, actually, I think is what they're doing here. I actually think that this map, considering how old this game is, looks quite decent, to be completely honest. How many I don't have any Brian Train games on this list. I don't think. I might be wrong. I don't think so. Alternative app encounters for Year of the Rat, because I could see that. I'll be honest though, if I owned this game, I wouldn't mind owning this game. But Decision's redoing it, so I'll wait for the reprint. I wouldn't mind playing on this exact map. I actually think it looks decent. Again, it's 1972, and this is what is this about exactly? This is about the communist offensive in the spring of 1972. Okay, so there you go on that. Here we go. I think this is the map you're talking about. This is nice. I think this is nice. It certainly looks more modern. I'm not sure I like it better than the old Redmond Simonson map, though, to be honest. But then again, I have nostalgic warm fuzzies. And yeah, this came out like at the time, right? That's one of the things that I think is most remarkable about this game is it's about the Easter Offensive in 72. And like the Easter Offensive had just happened, right? That's something that we don't think. How long before 10? We're moving pretty fast. I think we'll finish at about 9:30. We'll see. And as Carl points out, it came out like right after it was over. Ben Den Nick, Vietnam 69. This would have been a good one. I think I'd prefer. I don't want to say the original is better. I don't know that it is, but I kind of like it better. But again, I have nostalgia for Redmond Simonson graphics too. So now, if you're going to hunt this down, again, I recommend. Okay, white box edition. Geez. Okay, so these are those white boxes. Sometimes they had labels on them, but I've also seen them without the label because I think they sold the boxes separately at one point. That were basically SPI flat tray shaped, but they were white cardboard boxes. It was some bad packaging. If we look at Noble Knight, we're probably once again going to see. Oh no, I'm wrong. Okay, so Noble Knight has unpunched $55. This is a pretty early S&T, so I don't think that's not a crazy price. This is a Ziploc version. Looks like the Ziploc version of the flat pack for $60. And this is in the flat. Remember, they sold most of the stuff that was available, if not everything, that was available in flats. They also sold in like flat-sized Ziplocs. So it's a little bit pricey. I probably would recommend waiting for the reprint, but if you don't want to wait, it'd be nice to have. Even if you don't want to wait and you would prefer to play the original SPI version, you might want to wait until the reprint comes out because 6 months after that, the price on the old version will probably be lower. That's my guess. That's usually what happens. So, oh, well, I'm not shocked. It's a new GMT release too. So, I mean, I don't think that's particularly shocking, but hey, props to Stigler, right? All right, next is Silver Bayonet. This was GMT's first game, designed by Gene Billingsley. This is the 1990 release. This was released in 2010, I think, something like that, as like an updated second edition, and that's the one that I have. This is a company scale. I haven't played it, but I do have it, and I would like to play it. It looks quite good, and it has a good reputation. I think it has a better reputation than this number would necessarily suggest, although I guess we'll look at the update instead. Yeah, look, the update's got a way better number. How about that? But all the components are much, much fancier. If you're going to buy this, you'll get a lot more stuff in the updated one. You could see there's a lot of stuff here. And don't forget, if you're going to order from Noble Knight, use the discount, not the discount code. I don't have a discount code right now, but use the affiliate link in the video description so that we can give away Case Blue. Speaking of which, I think we're going to get to, I'll pull this down for just a second. So I think that we are going to do our giveaway of Forgotten Battles next Monday. So if you are interested in Forgotten Battles, be here for that. It is a $200-some game. So it will be a kind of a big deal giveaway. I just happen to have an extra copy, so we're going to get that I don't want to store. So we're going to give it away. I have 2 copies for myself for clarity. So, be here next week if you would like to win in the drawing for a copy of the Forgotten Battles. Now, we also have our new campaign, which is for Case Blue, which we will give away once it gets here. I haven't gotten an update from Noble Knight on the store credit yet. That should happen anytime, but I don't monitor it absolutely every day either. So hopefully we'll have a better number than 40% when we next do an update here. So bear that in mind. And speaking of Noble Knight, the official sponsors of the Counterclipping Show, let's hear from them right now.
Here at Noble Knight Games, we've been carefully growing the world's largest selection of board games, role-playing games and dice, war games, miniatures and paints, card games, and more, going on 25 years now. Our rustic castle contains more game and hobby goodness than you can shake a stick at, complete with careful packaging and the finest customer service the land can provide. You can buy, sell, trade from anywhere in the world, just like nature intended. Noble Knight Games.
All right, big thanks to Noble Knight Games for being the official sponsor of the Counterclipping Show, and also for being really just a great place to buy games and a great place to deal with people who are great people. So back to Vietnam. Let's fix this up again. I really need to set that up on the Stream Deck, but I have not done so yet. So let me do a compare and contrast here. If we go to, this is actually what I'm looking for. This is what you got in the original Silver Bayonet from 1999. I think it's 98.99 versus this is what you get in the update. There's like a bunch more scenarios. It's all really very nice. And it is an operational game, which seemed really weird to me when I opened it up and looked at it. And I'd already played Hot Dry Season at this point, so I kind of wasn't surprised as much by Silver Bayonet, but for these particular Vietnam topics, and this is Ia Drang and some other stuff, company scale is pretty much operational. So I really liked these, and yes, please do smash the like button. Thank you so much. And yeah, I think if Mitch was in charge of running this project, which he was, then I think this is just a bang-up job of an update. It is just pants down better than the original in every way, and the original's still well thought of. One of the reasons they redid it is because it was their first game, right? So there you go. It was they released like 3 games, one of which was Airbridge to Victory, and there was a Guadalcanal game that came out right around that same time too, that I'm not sure I remember the exact name of. Might have been called Guadalcanal. I'm drawing a blank on what the Guadalcanal game was, but those were like their first 3 games. But this was the first one. This is Operation Shoestring. Thank you, Vince Ree. That is the exact game title I am thinking of. Very early GMT games. And if you look at just because I want to, well, hold on. Let's see if we can find the front of the counter sheet. Here's what the counters look like, right? This is like GMT's first game, right? Now, for when this came out, I think these are fine, but boy, have they improved. Holy cow. All right, William Aaron says that any strategic game on the Vietnam War should take into account that it was in fact a war of Indochina with the air war over North Vietnam and the secret wars occurring in Laos and Cambodia. I think that's true. And you do see those things reflected in the big games that we will be seeing later on in the list. So moving on from this silver bayonet and all the silver bayonets, we do have Joe Chacone's Front Toward Enemy. This is a tactical game. I believe that it is squad-based, and it seemed to be very warmly received, but then it just kind of dropped off the radar, and nobody seems to be talking about it anymore. And I'm not sure why, because it looks pretty good. Nico Scooby, Jordan Worley did the graphics. I think the counters look pretty good. I think the map, it's not like my personal stylistic preference for maps, but I still think the counters look pretty good. So rating's okay. It's going for under MSRP. Again, I'm not sure. That it just seems like this got lost in the shuffle. We haven't. Next War of Vietnam doesn't count because it's not the Vietnam War. It's a different Vietnam War. But I do have that, to be fair. Let's fix this. All right, we got that. So, yeah, I don't have a lot to say about Front Toward Enemy. I do think the cover, maybe people get turned off by the cover. I didn't. I thought it was a minimalist and very effective cover. And I wouldn't mind trying this. And usually it will go on sale when MMP has copies, but I'm not 100% sure that they have copies anymore. So, all right, next we have from Flying Pig 65, Squad Level Combat in the Jungles of Vietnam. This is 2016 release. In, the big box Flying Pig thing, it's a Mark Walker design. Artists credited by BGG include Kwanchai Moria and Mark von Marshall. And of course, as one expects from these types of games, this looks like it's out of the Vassal module or something else, but I would be surprised. I've never handled this, but here we go. Here's physical pieces. This looks pretty good. I rather like that color palette, to be honest. The counters stand out on it. I'm not sure I can see the hex grid, but I'm not sure I can't based on that. Yeah, I think so. I believe they did reprint it. Yeah, or Christopher Smith says it's shipping now, so it's coming. So if you're into tactical Vietnam, with and you prefer modern graphics, this might be something to look at. And it's got a good rating. It's got good rank. It's got 181 people voted for it. So it's been, some people like it at least. And I have a pretty good opinion of a lot of the stuff that Flying Pig does. Flying Pig's another one of those publishers that does some stuff I'm interested in, but a lot of stuff that I'm just not into. So Meat Grinder is another one that's not on this list, and it really should be, to be completely honest. Next up, we have Vietnam 65 to 75 by Nick Karp, originally published in, I think, 1987 by Victory Games and republished in 2022 by GMT. This is, well, we're not covering upcoming games here, but tonight anyway, but this is coming. Combat Commander Vietnam is coming, and I'd be willing to give that a shot too. I would agree with this. I mean, I did a little bit of old school tactical, and I thought it was pretty solid. Certainly, the pieces are really nice, and it's a well designed game system. As for what it's trying to do, I think it is successful, and a very well designed package in terms of the physical presentation. Let me put it that way. All right, so this is the GMT version of Vietnam 65 to 75. Okay, and if you're going to buy this game, I would recommend buying the GMT update for a couple of reasons. It is bigger. It has 3 maps instead of 2, and the counters are, I think, 9/16. There's some 1/2 inch and 9/16, or maybe they're even 5/8 counters. But there are smaller counters for the informational stuff and larger counters for the units. That is something that they did, but to scale everything up requires another map. So unless you're in a situation where you could fit the old one on your table, but not this one because it's bigger, I would recommend buying this one for the vastly superior graphics. there are many seminal games released by Victory Games, but the technology of die cutting and printing back then was not great. So we saw this from SPI, we saw this from Avalon Hill, and we saw it from Victory Games. Not necessarily on every game, but some of these Victory Games, man, the print is really small on the counters. This is one of them, although it's not the worst one. The worst one in that regard is probably Hell's Highway. So Brant mentioned, this is pretty obscure. Brothers by My Side, which is Yadrang, freebie download from Armchair General magazine, later redone as It Started Here. I've heard of It Started Here from Lock and Load. It's kind of cool that came back, actually. So this is a magisterial game, okay? This is, if you are, you really need to be super into Vietnam as a wargaming topic if you were going to try and play the campaign game of this, because it will take you a long time. It's 11 years of campaign game. It will take you a long time, and the game is fairly complicated. That said, there really isn't anything else that does Vietnam in the way that this game does. So if you really want a very simulationist take on Vietnam, depicting the entire conflict, then I don't want to say I like recommend it, but it's a game you should look at. Just be aware that it's not for everybody, just based on the level of complexity and the time involved and all that. There are small scenarios. I don't think if the new edition added any scenarios, and it may have added one or two, but not any more than that. It certainly did not, like with Pacific War, where there's like a lot more scenarios. This has a couple more scenarios at most, and I want to say that it didn't actually add any scenarios. But the campaign is a huge project. As previously mentioned, basically unsoloable. I've heard that people have done it, and you can. I just think you're going to have a completely different experience playing this with an actual human being versus playing it against yourself because of all the hidden information. And as you can see, you get a decent amount of counter density here, but it's not Europa or OCS or something like that either. It goes without saying that the map is also a lot nicer in the new one. Here's the new map. I should pull the old one up too, so we can do a compare. If they're even, this will do. Yeah, so this is the original map with what looks like a not immensely high resolution scan, I might add. Whereas this is the new one. And this is 3 maps. The original is 2. And you can actually see this white space is not part of anything. It's 2 maps put together in this sort of L shape. If you want the most complete simulation of... Yeah, the trouble with... I think this is not a bad idea, Brant, but this is not the kind of thing I'd want to try and bring, like, noobs into. If you want to roll this big rolling game, cool... I would not recommend it unless you have like a dedicated team of, say, 4 people that are going to stick and play with it the whole time. I wouldn't try and rotate people in and out of this. It's very different from a lot of other war games. $28 mil, thanks for stopping by. Known wargaming company and has been ordered to do so, beginning with G and W, but don't you find it takes me out of the game and ruins the realism? Are we talking about Tet here? All right, so urgent wargaming question. Has anyone ever... I think we need to start with this question. So 28 mil, thanks for stopping by, first of all. Has anyone ever played a historical wargame and your opponent insists on playing or using sci-fi miniatures with their respective rules? Yes, this player works for a well-known wargaming company and has been ordered to do so. Okay, so me? No, I've never participated in this. I've always had relatively little problem with if I want to play 40K, I can go rustle up some 40K players. If I want to play Vietnam 65 to 75, it's a little harder to find people to play that, but I know where to go. So Europa's not that different, though. Europa is in many respects extremely traditional with a traditional CRT and all that stuff. This works pretty differently, and I found it, there was definitely a learning curve in there. I would recommend starting this with one or more of the smaller scenarios, just to kind of learn the basic mechanics before even attempting the big campaign, because I found it different. Let me put it that way. And yeah, that's true. That's true. It sounds like we are talking about 40K. It sounds in character for 40K people. And I may be making fun of them a little bit. I don't have an issue with people playing 40K. They enjoy it. It sounds like that individual, however, is maybe not wanting to play the same game that you would like to play, and there should be a conversation about that. That's different. That's different. I think that's probably doable. Well, this is a bit of a semantic point, but I also agree. They are, as I don't know if it was, as many people have made comments basically like this. They are a doll catalog that happens to have a set of miniatures rules that's also in the catalog. So, and that absolutely sounds like I am poo-pooing people who are enjoying playing Games Workshop games. And I am not. I will, however, say I don't particularly like Games Workshop as a company. So, all right. And that's another thing too, actually, with Vietnam 65 to 75. Thank you, Ed, for bringing this up, because this is one of those games that the two sides play extremely differently. Okay, and you are as the coalition player or allied player going to have to spend a lot of whack-a-mole time trying to stamp out Viet Cong. And it's a long campaign, and you're going to have to do that over and over and over and over and over again. So you better be comfortable as a player playing this game on that side or the other side. It has similar challenges because it's a long game. You better be comfortable with that. So I would also not have allowed that, but again, maybe that person just needs to be playing 40K. If so, go play 40K. I'm not sure I understand the motivation. This is probably fair too with what their minis cost. All right, so let's move on from Vietnam 65 to 75. It's hard. It's simultaneously a difficult game to recommend because it's long, it's complicated, it is a slog at times, but it also is a unique game, a seminal game, and a game that treats its subject with a degree of seriousness that has not been equaled elsewhere. Although I might catch some flack for that because there are some very good games coming up here. All right, so moving on from Vietnam 65 to 75. Purple Haze probably a little bit higher on the list if we did this next year. But it has been very warmly received. This is from Phalanx. It is just as fancy as you might expect from Phalanx. It's somewhere, geez, I think I was standing right, oh, look at that! There's Carl Crater of the Wargame Bootcamp standing right there. And here's Candace Harris, and I'm not sure if I recognize anybody else. Got to congratulate Carl, and there's Zilla Blitz. Got to congratulate Carl on his awesome choice in clothing. There we go. So this is what comes in the box. It's a lot. I don't know what this even costs. Let's find out. So Noble Knight for $185. I think this is still in print, but I might be wrong. 5 copies on the BGG Marketplace, none of which are in the US. One of which is only 75 pounds in the UK. So cool for the UK, I guess. I don't know what MSRP is on this thing, though. But again, it's supposed to be really good. It is a quote-unquote immersive story creation tactical level campaign war game for 1 to 4 players. It drops you into Vietnam in 1967. You're leading a squad of U.S. Marines. I also don't know whether this game is providing you with actual historical situations or if it is merely more of a sandbox. Carl says it's very RPG-ish. The whole story creation game does make it sound like that. I don't necessarily see a reason why a game fitting that description couldn't be a war game, and I'm not making any judgment calls about this game specifically, but that would be an interesting game, and it's supposed to be a real solid game, like I said. So, and it's by Bernard. Bernard is the designer. I don't know how to pronounce that name. I am sorry, Bernard. I should learn. You'd be right. All right, so here's, I think this is actually an expansion, isn't it? Yeah. No, this is the original one. This is actually, I think, the current Lock and Load Tactical volume on Vietnam. Heroes of the Nam. Jeff Lewis is the designer. As with all of the Lock and Load Tactical stuff, it looks great. Mo from Mo's Game Table is here. Mo, thanks for stopping by. Ah, okay. Okay, I can live with this, to be honest. But no, sharp-looking game. Lock and Load Tactical, I think, I've never tried it in Vietnam. I've only played it in World War II, but I don't see a particular reason why it couldn't work with a certain number of modifications. Maybe too many modifications, but I would want to I'd want to try this out first. I have Heroes of the Bitter Harvest, which is an East Front game, which I want to play at some point. So if you want tactical Vietnam and you want it to play pretty quickly, but also have a decent amount of crunch to it, maybe look at Lock and Load Tactical in general, to be completely honest. All right, next up is Lee Brimacombe Woods, Downtown, Air War over Hanoi, 1965 to 72, from 2004. I believe Lee Brimacombe Wood has said that there will eventually be a new edition of this. Simulate Vietnam? I'm not sure Purple Haze is intended to be a simulation. Might have missed something. Hold on. Okay, so he was playing D-Day 1944 in bolt action and a GW. So it's a okay, I see why it's important to the UK. So we are talking about a miniatures game to start with. That's not wrong with that. That's just an observation that I'll make. GW employee who comes to our club started to diss our wargaming table, saying it wasn't a lick on what GW have. Snapped somebody's miniature in half? Huh. That person would have probably been asked to depart or asked to step outside. So I think that's completely out of line. I think. I mean, the whole, no, I want to play at 40K in your D-Day game. I think that's just weird. But if you have somebody that person sounds like an asshole to me. All right, so Downtown, Air War over Hanoi. This is an air game with, I think, some tactical elements, some operational elements, leaning into the operational much more so than a typical air game would. I have not played this one. The one I have played in the family is Red Storm, which is mechanically different, but structurally pretty similar, if that makes any sense. So, immersion is valuable, right? I mean, we talk about those narrative-focused games, and that's what those games tend to be pretty good at, right? So Joe Perez says, there's so much stuff in this that he had it for 10 years before he found out that GMT didn't put the map in there. So, incidentally, I bought France 40 at Origins from Enterprise Games, fabulous people. And I got it home and opened it up. I put the Discord server knows about this already. And counter sheet number 2 was the worst registered counter sheet I've ever seen from GMT. I went on the website, chatted with Debbie, I think, and they're sending me a replacement, which is supposed to be here tomorrow. So it's all cool. It's just really strange. It's very strange how badly that counter sheet is misregistered, because it's bad. Yeah, or the school locker. I mean, that works too. Yeah, no kidding. I mean, this is something that, back in the day, I would not have put up with this. I would not have put up with that sort of behavior. I don't like people touching my dice with their greasy little pizza-covered fingers either, so there's that. Yeah, I would agree with this characterization. I think the way Perfidious Albion is saying it is, this is a bit of a hybrid, though on the surface it is mostly operational. In execution, the combat is somewhat tactical, as are the electronic warfare elements. Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that characterization. I think it is not a purely operational or a purely tactical game. It's kind of both, which opens it up to the possibility of doing neither particularly well. But I don't think, based on my experience with Red Storm, I don't really think that that's the case. I believe this is basically correct. I mean, in the UK specifically, wargaming has the connotation of we play this with miniatures, much more so than in the US, or from what I can tell, it seems, in continental Europe. Okay. So the issue was that he refused to play the scenario Night of the Long Knives and Crystal Knight scenario. Neither of these sound like D-Day games to me. So, no, they're not even retro. They're just bad. Let's see if we pull up a map. Let's see how, that's nice. That is a nice actual photograph of the Hanoi map. And it's a nice looking game. It's 2004, so it's not exactly, well, yeah, I mean, contact your local barrister or whatever they call them over there. Let's get a shot of the counters here as well. So, a lot of status counters here. This is not even the counter with the planes on it. So there's a lot of status counters in this system, generally speaking. And again, I don't know if... I don't know about Churchill. Peter Cushing definitely was. I don't know about Christopher Lee. 1930s Wargame scenario. Okay. I feel like I'm lacking... I'm lacking critical information about exactly what is being played. But I also think, based on what you're telling me, that this person sounds like an asshole, and I would recommend not playing with them ever again, or speaking to them, and if they show up and start trash talking, tell them to get the fuck out of your face. So, I don't know if polite British people can do that, but rude Americans can. Get the fuck out of here. I'm trying to play a game here. Alright, this is kind of an honorable mention, to be honest, because this is just only because it's not all Vietnam. So this is Ben Hull's Fields of Fire. I think both of these volumes do have a Vietnam component in them. They are set. The topic is a particular military regiment. In this case, it's the 5th Marines. There's a new version of the Fields of Fire rulebook out. I would recommend playing with the new rules. Peter Cushing was confirmed miniatures player. There was like a TV interview about it at some point. Yeah, I mean, I can't, if you want, like, advice on how to deal with a problem player, that might be a pretty good show topic for a future show, to be completely honest. I'm not sure we're going to really say anything more substantive tonight. Other than tell this asshole to get out of your face. Next up is Hearts and Minds. This is the most recent edition from Compass Games. It is a John Paniski game. And John Paniski is another one of those designers that I don't necessarily like every John Paniski game that I've played, but I always seem to find something interesting to experience in them. Now, this is an area-based game, and as I recall, the map, I do like this map for the record. It is an area-based map. This is the game, as I recall, that for some unknown reason comes with dice that are like 1.5 inches in measurements. I'm not sure why. As Carl says, it is super abstract. John Paniski is one of a pretty small number of designers that I would pay attention to when he does one of these very abstract games. He tends to have a really good grasp of historical dynamics. I will agree with this too. I think the last John Paniski game I played was Plains Indian Wars, which I liked a lot. The rulebook really could use a little bit of extra lovin's. Okay, so if you've got I mean, I do think this is a problem that I've seen in wargaming. I've seen it in RPGs. This is just this person is an asshole, and they will find a way to make everybody else at the table with them miserable in some capacity, or offended, or break their stuff, or whatever. I just wouldn't play with this person anymore. So. Anyway, I owned this briefly, fiddled with it a little bit, and then I don't own it anymore. But if you are going to pick it up, I would probably pick up the Compass version, just because I really do like the map. I think the art style of the map is fantastic. Did I not even see this? It's very possible, because I was either busy or burned out. All right. Jonathan Dyer says that the strength of Hearts and Minds is that you can play a single year scenario, which is doable on a school night. That is attractive. And I do think that playtime is a really important factor for people who are maybe not used to war games. And I'm not the right person to be preaching this particular message, okay? Because I am as guilty of associating wargaming with big monster wargaming as anybody else, but that is only one of the many dimensions of wargaming, and it is, if you can get a good experience in 2 hours, whether it's a hex encounter thing or CDG or whatever, then I think we could use a lot of those games. I think actually complexity is less of an issue than playtime is, as far as scaring people off. People will eventually get through complexity, but if you don't have 8 hours to play a game, then you're probably not going to get to it. Well, accidents happen too. That things do occur. But if you are the cause of said mishap, you make it right and apologize, and I'm cool with that. So I don't know. If there's a whole lot else I can say. 28 mil about your asshole you have in the UK that you're playing with. I would just not play that person anymore. So yeah, I mean, you're asking for an actual confrontation if you start like just busting people's stuff. That's the kind of thing that gets one hit with a chair in a certain environment, if you know what I'm saying. Not that I'm endorsing that behavior, but that is unacceptable. So, all right. So, so this makes it really super duper awkward, and I feel like it's becoming more awkward. About all I can say is find different people to play with. Go find a different club or store or whatever. If you're in the UK, I guarantee there are people. You can find other people to play with over there. Just find yourself busy when this individual wants to play. So, all right. And I'm not going to run through old messages either anymore. All right. The last game we will be discussing this evening is Fire in the Lake by Volko Ruhnke and Mark Herman. This released in 2014. There have been 3 expansions to it, one of which is a solo bot replacement for the solo bots that are in the game. And the other, John Madison, thanks for stopping by. This is a coin game. I do think that it is one of the stronger coin games. It is also one of the more wargamey coin games. It will basically, if you have let's look at the expansions, because I'm going to mess the details up if I don't read it. The Trung bot update is the bot. It's basically replacing the solitaire system that's in the box. This sounds like the worst minis club come to the US. I've got conventions for you here. I'll set you up with the HMGS folks. Get out of there. So Sovereign of Discord is, I think, the prequel, which extends the game earlier, and then Fall of Saigon extends the game all the way to, I think, 75. That's when Saigon falls. Yeah. So you can play these things. You need, they are expansions. They are not standalones. You will need the core game to play them, but you can kind of play the Sovereign of Discord scenario and get the stuff with Dien Ben Phu in that. I think it's covered. I might be wrong about that. Or play just the Fall of Saigon stuff. And both of these have, additional wrinkles to them. I haven't played either of the expansions. I will tell you that. I have them both, however. I guess if I have a complaint, it is that there is so much stuff in the core game and in the expansions that I could not put everything in the one box and throw the expansion boxes away, which is something I do from time to time. I was not able to do it with this, so I'm forced to sit on these extra boxes. But I do think this is a really solid game. I think it's a really solid entry in the coin series. It's one of the two to three coin games that I consistently call my favorite coin games. The others being Pendragon, and Liberty or Death. I don't watch reality TV shows at all, and I watched a few episodes of Survivor when it was new, when reality shows were just starting to be a thing, and now it's like all reality shows. I don't watch any of that at all. I just will not. It is bilge that the networks love because it's really cheap to produce. Like, producing actual shows can be expensive depending on what kind of show we're talking about. Producing reality slop is incredibly inexpensive. Think about, even if there's like $1 million prize at the end of the season, $1 million, Game of Thrones, they spent like $25 million for individual episodes, right? So I could kind of see watching the cooking stuff, and I have done that a little bit, not lately. So I have played Fire in the Lake. I think I won the game as South Vietnam. I think I might be misremembering that, or thinking of a different game. But real solid game. Now, if you don't like coin, you're probably going to have a beef with this. But like I said, the coin games, in my opinion, vary in how much they feel like war games. A game like Cuba Libre doesn't really feel super wargamey to me. But a game like A Distant Plane or this or Gandhi also doesn't feel particularly wargamey to me. Even Falling Sky to me felt kind of wargamey, but it also felt like just a lot of pushing pieces back and forth that I didn't really care for. It's probably, of the coin games I've played, and this is unfortunate because I like the topic, I do think that Falling Sky might be my least favorite, but I haven't played them all either, so I wouldn't know. I am in principle willing to play coin games. I was definitely not playing the North Vietnamese. I was playing the Republic of South Vietnam. So, and of course, Mark Herman and Volko Ruhnke, can't go wrong with the designer pedigrees here either. Also a very striking and a very Vietnam cover from Mr. Roger McGowan cover, of course. Instantly recognizable as a Vietnam game. It's not like the thing I was complaining about last night, where there's a couple games called Freedom. The one that I'm thinking of was on the Greek War of Independence or something like that. But there's like nothing on there that looks like a generic fantasy board game of some kind. I would not have associated with even with history. Fire in the Lake, on the other hand, you could cut the top off. In fact, let's do that. Here's an experiment. I can't do it here. But if you just saw the top half, you would instantly know what this game was about, right? You would instantly know this is obviously a game about Vietnam, because it calls our collective memory of that image from Apocalypse Now, right? So, very, very solid game. I liked it enough to buy the expansions. At one point, I want to do a weekend-long massive marathon of Fire in the Lake, where we play from like 1960 all the way to 75. I think that would be pretty cool. I'm not sure when Sovereign of Discord starts. That's the thing. But hey, why not check? So 61. So we're gonna miss Dien Ben Phu there. So yeah, well, it is. It's classic Vietnam cinematic imagery, right? All right, so let's pull that down. Pull this back up and go here. I haven't seen this either. I mean, to be honest about it, I really don't watch much television. I watched Andor. I watched Not sure I could think of what wife and I are watching The Mandalorian right now. It's not that good. It's got its moments. There's no doubt about that, but it's not amazing. Squid Game's on Netflix, as I recall, and it's supposed to be good, but doesn't necessarily sound like my thing. I believe it is a horror thing, isn't it? I might be wrong about that. Some kind of schmutz here. I think we're pretty much done clipping for the night. So, great time to smash the like button, as Danny says. Thanks, Danny. I appreciate it. I watch way more YouTube than television. I mean, I'm not sure anybody watches network television in the conventional way where, it's 8 o'clock, the Golden Girls are on, I gotta catch. I don't think anybody watches television like that anymore. I watch stuff when I want to watch it, which means I'm watching it on streaming. And even the broadcast stuff is on streaming now, so... James Whitmer says he recently finished Andor, by far the best Star Wars material. I think you can easily make that case. Tubi seems to be the best value for the buck. Isn't it free? I thought it was free. I could be wrong about that. I remember China Beach and Tour of Duty. All right. Well, we got a tab crash again. Yeah, and this was pretty cool too. And yeah, I mean, that was a thing. I was of an appropriate age at that time to appreciate that. Like, what can I say? So I have not seen any of the of the animated Star Wars material. I think I don't want to put it this way because I know that many people who are not children enjoy animated things, and I can flatly tell you there's some really cool animated stuff out there that I would actually recommend and watch. It's just not normally my thing. So I feel like there's like a barrier to me with watching an animated thing, particularly when it's like this big animated series with like 8 seasons of 3 different shows, and I got to keep. I don't like Star Wars enough to go through that kind of mental gymnastics. On the other hand, if you want to watch good like animated material, there's Akira, which is brilliant. There's the original Ghost in the Shell is really awesome. There's several other things. Princess Mononoke is really good. So I can see this argument. I think you could, and I bet this has happened. You could probably get 2 hours of conversation off of this post right here. So sometimes weird stuff happens. Like they don't have the original footage. This happened to the Babylon 5 on DVD stuff where for at least the first season, and I think they managed to figure it out for subsequent seasons. When they released it on DVD, they actually had to pull the VFX. They had like the filmed like interior scenes, but like all the VFX shots, they had just lost. They had lost all the files, so they actually had to like pull it off a videotape and stick it back in, and it looks terrible. So... John says he saw an add-on on Steam or maybe a video of a free community of Star Wars World that is a huge sandbox open world. You're not talking about the old Star Wars Galaxies, are you? Because there's still private, unofficial servers of that running. Watership Down. I've never seen that, but I've heard good things about Cowboy Bebop. I will speak up for Star Trek Lower Decks. So when that started coming on, it was like the Paramount Plus network was starting to happen, and what we had for Star Trek was Discovery, which didn't feel like Star Trek to me, and it felt like completely mishandled. And then after a year or so of that, Lower Decks came out. I'm like, wow, whoever's running this actually watches Star Trek. That's awesome. So this can create problems. For years, the Heavy Metal, the movie, was held up because of music rights. There you go. Fantastic stuff. Not a huge fan of the Fu Manchu stuff, but Doc Savage is actually neat. It gets weird, but it's actually pretty neat. I'm a big fan of Robert E. Howard, though. Knights of the Old Republic. Well, when I heard Sandbox Open World, that's not Knights of the Old Republic, but it might be Star Wars Galaxies. Now, there is also Star Wars The Old Republic, which is the current MMO from... I forget who's making it. It's okay. I played it a little bit. It's okay. Mo recommends SEAL Team if you've got Paramount Plus. I will get Paramount Plus at some point. It's a little more of a priority to get for me to get Max at the moment because there's just more stuff, or even Apple TV, just because of what's on and what I want to watch. I did rewatch Dune Part 2 whilst clipping counters the other days. I have not seen... I've seen about half of the first season of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. This is in like the second season or something like that. I think maybe third season. I forget. We're having some gastric issues once again. But we're pretty close to wrapping the show up. Star Wars Galaxies was its own thing. It was by Sony Online Entertainment. If you Google Star Wars Galaxies, it will come up. And there are private ways to play using either the old game or the new game, and then they lost the license, and now it's with BioWare. And again, if you like BioWare RPGs and don't mind that the trailers are far better Star Wars and storytelling than the game is, I guess you'll be okay. Yeah, this is exactly how I do it. All right, Brant, thanks for stopping by. Let's see. Welcome back to the show. Say about downtown, greater respect for pilots assigned for bombing and SEAD. Not sure I know what SEAD means, but I can tell you what Sam means. All right. We are going to wrap this up a little. That's a good movie. We Were Soldiers, the Mel Gibson film We Were Soldiers, and the book's good too, is worth your time. The book's better, I think, but go figure, right? That's almost always the case. I've only read like one of the Fu Manchu books, but I have seen at least a couple of the old movies that Hammer did. So, very good. See, if I played more modern stuff, I would know this. Because I play very little modern stuff, I did not know this. All right. I will be inclined to agree with Witty Doctors here that it is a property that is currently being driven largely by laziness and just general unwillingness to take chances on a franchise that they know is essentially going to make a ton of money for them. All right, folks, we're going to wrap this up tonight a little bit early. We will be back next week, however, and I remind you that we will be doing a giveaway at some point in next week's show of The Forgotten Battles, the latest OCS release from The Gamers and Multiman Publishing. Designer Tony Burkett from a series designed by the late and legendary Dean Essig. So stay tuned for that. The Dune, it's not really an MMO. It's really kind of a lobby shoot, like a lobby survival game. But it's not bad. It's not bad. I'd wait for a sale probably. All right, everybody have a great rest of the night. We will see you all again soon. Don't forget to like the video. There's a way to support the show in the video description. Don't forget about the Noble Knight affiliate link. The sooner that fills up, the sooner we can have a copy of Case Blue in here to give away. So everybody have a great rest of the night. We'll see you all again soon.